Ayy, look, yeah, ayy. I'm in the lab like Dexter, brand new batch he tested. I'm with all the extras, don't try and bitch, I'm pressure. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the New Media Podcast. I'm your host, We hope you enjoyed the last episode because, as always, today's going to be an even better episode. I got the whole crew with me. Everybody's in the house today. And today, we're going to be doing a little bit of a Week 4 recap. Of course, we'll talk about a lot of things that went on in Week 4 of the NFL season. We'll do an overreaction and not an overreaction. We got some statements that we're going to be discussing later on in this episode. And then, of course, we'll go ahead and close out with our Week 5 pick'em predictions. But of course, before we jump into all of that, temperature check. How's everybody doing today?
I mean, we're about getting close to a quarter of the season done. I'm not the happiest about how my team has been, but I'm also not the angriest. I feel like this is kind of aligned with our expectations coming into the season. So I'm pretty modest about how our season's going on. And the NFL has been up and down. I feel like offenses have been kind of slow, offenses that we've gotten used to, and some teams have just been right where they've been, the Bills and the Dolphins. So it's been good to see.
That sounds like a guy that's not happy with his team winning anything during the season. He
sounds like a guy who ain't win this past week. He ain't win.
Yeah, it sounds like guy that didn't win this past week, But yeah, you see my team Monday night. Y'all see Baby Dion, 99-yard pick six return. I ain't gotta say much, man. I'm living out here, man. Gino doing Gino things, you feel me? He came back into the game, immediately started talking his shit, telling the Giants that y'all dirty and everything. And it's just our defense, man. I'm happy. 3-1 going into the break. And, we had 9 to 10, 11 players missing, key starters missing. We getting healthy. Come back week 5, man. It's very excited, man. Shout out Baby Dion, though. 5th pick right there. People say we should have drafted Jalen Carter. We should have took a quarterback. We got Baby Dion. I ain't worried about nothing over there.
Hey man, I waited 4 weeks to say this, man. But if your team didn't get a win, please let's not talk tonight, all right? If your team didn't get a win this past week,
first win, by the way.
If your team ain't get a win, I just don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it tonight, man. Finally got our first win in the book. It was against the 0-3 Panthers, but nothing really too impressive. We got a big week coming up against Kansas City. Am I confident going into that game? Absolutely not. But, we got to take it week by week. We'll take the wins as we can and where we can, and we just keep moving forward. But, of course, let's go ahead and jump right into it, man. And as we're on the topic of, Big H's Seattle Seahawks and the New York Giants matchup on Monday night, it didn't look too great at all for the New York Giants football team. The Seattle Seahawks were able to win that game 24-3. Daniel Jones getting sacked 11 times, pick 6 at the goal line, 99-yard return. The New York Giants so far, they're starting off their season 1-3. Saquon has missed the last couple of weeks due to an ankle injury, and things aren't going to get better these next couple of weeks for sure. This upcoming week in week 5, they have a matchup against the Miami Dolphins, and then in week 6, they follow that up going up against the red hot Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills, a team that struggled in week 1 against the New York Jets, have looked like a team that's turned it around. But to get back to the New York Giants, man, this is a team coming off a lot of success last year. They beat my team in the postseason. They absolutely killed us. We had absolutely no answer for them. Going into last year, their whole idea was they were going to go into a rebuild mode, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. Brian Daboll came in, changed the environment, changed the culture. Daniel Jones had himself a very solid year, earned himself $40 million. Actually, I wouldn't go as far as say he earned himself. He robbed them for $40 million. And now they're kind of right back to where they were a couple of years ago. And so the question that I propose to you guys is, did the Giants' success last year ruin their chance at a successful rebuild?
I feel like it kind of handicapped them when they gave Daniel Jones that contract, because this team, when you look at it, has multiple holes. They still don't have a true X wide receiver. They don't have a true wide receiver 1. They went out and got Darren Waller, but they've been unable to really dial him up and scheme him into this offense and get him the ball as consistently as possible. Saquon's been hurt, which is a huge piece of their offense. Daniel Jones hasn't had that same success running, escaping out of the pocket. He's been under duress. Of course, at the same time, he is playing poorly. Let's get that out the way. I mean, there isn't anything to suggest that he's been playing great. But at the same time, the offensive line has just been absolutely like terrible. It's been collapsing almost. It feels like every single play he's under duress, and under those conditions, it's hard for a quarterback to really succeed. But at the same time, Daniel Jones wasn't a quarterback that you were impressed with his throwing ability last year. I understand, he leaned more into a game manager role. He was able to really run with the football and protect the ball. And I think that's what Brian Dable kind of bought into. But at the same time, handing him that contract, and he wasn't like a volume passer. He's not somebody you're really trusting to throw the football 40 times a game. I feel like that's where it kind of handicapped them and sold them dreams about like, hey, like you see, we won a playoff game. That should mean that we can take a step forward. But in reality, there's still a lot of holes in this team. And even coming into the season, I had questions about their offensive line. And Evan Neal has been like an absolute bust, to plain and simple. I don't think he's been anything short of just terrible. And that's a top 10 pick that they went out and drafted. And, this team has a lot of holes, and it's a big question mark to Brian Dable. I feel like he did enough with his roster. I feel like he turned water into wine basically with this team last year, and now it kind of sold them dreams about where they really are as a team. So I think there's a lot of questions to be asked about this roster and whether, given that Daniel Jones that contract has really handicapped them.
I mean, I really don't think the contract is really going to handicap them. I just feel like the way the roster is built and the type of offense that they have, like, you can't trust Daniel Jones to throw the ball 30 to 40 times a game. And that's not the type of way he plays. He's more of a, 15 to 20 passes a game managing quarterback where they run the ball a lot. But, situation-wise, like I've been mentioning Evan Neal, a couple of the other O-linemen are, beat down right now. They're injured, so they're missing 2 or 3 guys. Evan Neal, their first-round pick that they drafted, is one of the worst O-linemen in the league, and he's playing, he's complaining. And then, they don't have any one receiver. They don't have a 2 receiver. They really don't have much. And when Saquon's injured or not playing in the game, teams just have a free shoot at Daniel Jones every single time. They're going to blitz. They're going to send the blitz. They're going to say, hey, we know your receivers can't beat us off the line. Your receivers can't beat us down the field. We'll take our chances one-on-one. We'll double Waller and, let Daniel Jones cook. And that's been the case this season, and he hasn't been doing anything lately about that. I mean, the contract to me, obviously, it's overpaid, but I don't think it affects the team much. But to me, it's just they have a lot of problems in a lot of other positions other than quarterback as well. Quarterback is a big issue for them, but O-line's an issue. The receiver core is an issue. Some part, their defense is okay here and there sometimes. They show up here and there, but they still got to fix up on their defense. But offensively, there's a lot of issues, offensive line, quarterback, and receiver core. We just can't put the blame on Daniel Jones. But, I mean, Daniel Jones is the start of it. He got to play better. He got, pick that he threw on the goal line. If he waited a second, he had Waller in the back behind Paris Campbell. He had him wide open in the end zone. He could have waited a second. That's why, Dabo was pretty heated about that interception, man. He was like, if you just waited half a second, you could have had a touchdown in the back of the end zone. But, you rush stuff like that, and it doesn't work. So, for me, they have a lot of problems going on the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, it starts with paying Daniel Jones $40 million. I mean, I don't believe he's a type of quarterback to get $40 million. To me, that's one of the elites of elites to get that type of money. For him to get that off a 15 touchdown season speaks volume. So, they got a lot of stuff to fix up on. And Saquon's probably gone. So, there's going to be a lot of bigger issues after this year. So, we'll see. Plug in your – yeah.
No, I got it. The New York Giants going into last year, the one thing that everybody expected out of them was for them to go into a full-on rebuild. Brian Dable comes in, changes the culture, changes the environment. He limits Daniel Jones's turnovers from last year, really allowing him to utilize his legs a lot more than his arm, and it worked out perfectly fine. And they're looking to build on that this past offseason, but unfortunately, the moves that they made this past offseason are absolutely useless right now for them. They didn't go ahead and address their O-line issue. They didn't go ahead and address their receiver issue. And so it's on full display right now, all of their issues they had last year, and it's on display right now. And then on top of that, they signed Darren Waller, but they're not even able to utilize Darren Waller correctly. I mean, Darren Waller had about 2 catches on Monday night. So it was a pretty disappointing outing, especially in a game where there's no Saquon Barkley. You probably want to rely on your 6'6" target in Darren Waller. And then on top of that, I think it's easy to blame Daniel Jones in a situation like this. But at the same time, he's hurting his case. He's hurting any argument to protect him because the turnovers are back. And that was a big issue for Daniel Jones throughout his entire career so far, leading up until this point. Last year, I think it was just a one-off year. He limited his turnovers like crazy. The fumbling issues were gone. The interceptions were down. And so now, only 4 weeks into the season, Daniel Jones has one more interception than he did last year. The fumbles are starting to come. The fumbling issue is starting to come back up again. And so, he's not helping his case whatsoever. He's hurting this team, and it doesn't help that his offensive line is all banged up and his offensive line just isn't good. It doesn't help that Saquon Barkley is missing games. It doesn't help that his receiving core is a bottom half receiving core in the league. And so, the New York Giants, as of right now, I think the only way you go from here is to kind of just address what you need in the offseason. That's the best way I can put it. Because if you just continue to come into the season with Isaiah Hodgins as your wide receiver, Wan'Dale Robinson, Paris Campbell, that can only take you so far. And you're already dealing with the Saquon Barkley issue. You're able to franchise tag him and then give him that 1-year contract extension. So now he'll be up for a new deal in this upcoming offseason. That's a whole another issue that you have to deal with. It's like, as of right now, they just need to pick what side of the fence they want to be on. Are they going to be a team that's going to be contending for a playoff spot each and every year? Or are they just going to go into a full-on reset, a full-on rebuild, and then move forward from there? Because their defense has been extremely terrible and underwhelming so far in this season. I mean, they haven't been able to stop absolutely anybody throughout these 4 weeks. And like I said, it doesn't get any easier when you have to go up against Tyreek and Jalen Waddle this upcoming week. And those guys are coming off a terrible loss up in Buffalo. And so they're going to start off the season about 1-6, not 1-6, but their record right now 1-3. So they're going to start off the season about 1-5. At that point, now you're going to have to start contemplating whether or not Saquon Barkley is going to be available for you for the majority of the season. Saquon Barkley, a guy who's looking to get paid, is not going to put himself at risk to get himself injured again. I know he's trending in the right direction to possibly play this week or just miss this week and fully come back the next week. But another knick-knack injury happens to Saquon Barkley, he's going to be gone. And so now, again, all the pressure will be on Daniel Jones. All the eyes will be on Brian Daboll to make something happen in this upcoming season, which leads me into my next question. Do we believe last year was a fluke based on what we're seeing so far right now?
I wouldn't say it was a fluke. I think Brian Daboll did enough with his team in terms of creativity and personnel. I think he played to the strengths of this roster. He put Daniel Jones in a position where he didn't need to throw the ball that much and was able to really make plays with his feet. The defense, they played better as the season went on. Offensive line still had some issues, but they're playing much better than they are this year. You had Saquon Barkley there. I feel like Brian Daboll just essentially played to the strengths of his personnel, and that's what was able to really get them the win, even in the playoff game. Daniel Jones making plays with his feet, Saquon Barkley running the football, the defense making timely stops. I think that I don't think last year was a fluke, but I really think last year kind of sold them ideas about how closer to his roster than they really are, like in terms of its quality. I think they're much farther than they really anticipated, and so I don't think last year was a fluke, but definitely like this year with the injuries that are piling up and how bad that their wide receiver core is, and Daniel Jones under pressure. I think that last year kind of sold them dreams about it.
I don't think last year was a fluke. I mean, Daniel Jones, like Daboll came in, he kept Daniel Jones from making the turnovers of simple mistakes that he was making the year before. They trusted the run game early on in the season. Saquon, fantastic start to last year in the beginning of the season. The first 10 games, he was phenomenal. And the offense was clicking, and defense too. They underrated the defense coming into last year. They played great, to grit. They were fighting every possession. I just feel like this year teams are, even with Saquon missing, and they're giving up a lot of yards, and the offense is still the same issues. Even last year when we talked about them, we mentioned them talking about how they still didn't have a number one option on the receiver end. Sometimes offense, it was scrape to go for them. It's either Saquon gets into the end zone or, Jones might have a rushing touchdown, but a lot of it was field goals or some of it came from defense. And then now this year, they're getting nothing on the offensive side of the ball and nothing from the defensive side of the ball. But I don't think it's a fluke. It's just that they didn't address the issues that they needed to do in the offseason. I feel like they came into this offseason and they missed on a lot of stuff that they needed to address. You know, I felt like they should have drafted a receiver in the first round, and felt like they should have, gone into free agency and try to get a receiver or regroup the old line and fix that up. But they didn't do any of that. They came back into the next season with the same squad, and I mean, the only way you can go up is just, keep on evolving, keep on adjusting, and keep on moving up. But you can't be stuck with the same type of player, same type of system, same type of scheme where it wasn't really working, but it was okay for you guys, and they didn't switch out of that. So for me, this upcoming offseason, they gotta make some moves. I mean, T. Higgins is probably going to be available, and a couple other receivers on the market are going to be available. And fix that line to give Daniel Jones a chance to throw the ball at least and see what he can do with it. But we gotta wait till the end of the season. I feel like I did mention in the early season, even with Saquon holding out, if they do start off 1-5, 1-6, their season's over. So that's what it's looking like. I mean, you have a first round pick, you get a top 5 pick. There's some talented receivers up there. So who knows what they can do with that pick, but we'll see what happens.
Talented receiver, a lot of talented quarterbacks, which leads me into my last question about this New York Giants team. Let's say these guys end up with a top 5, top 10 pick in this upcoming draft. Do the Giants move off from Daniel Jones after this season?
I think to them, it really kind of depends on how he ends out this season. I think if he goes out on this season and he just plays out flat out terrible, like reminiscent of the old Daniel Jones, and he kind of performs like that, I think the Giants have no issue drafting a quarterback. They'll find a way to attempt to try to weasel out of that contract, even though it is problematic that they gave him one in the first place. But I do think
his contract something like after 2 years, it's like they can't like not cancel, but like reconstruct it or like.
Yeah, I think after the second year is where they have a lot more options. So like obviously it would be this year, and then the next year, Daniel Jones would be on the roster. But I think they have no problem if Daniel Jones ends up the season on a terrible stretch, or he plays well below his standards. Then I think they have no problem moving on from him.
I mean, the way they're heading right now, I mean, if their record continues to be, they land that top 3 pick, which is what they're heading to. I mean, Caleb Williams available, and they get that option. Taking that, try to get a star receiver like T. Higgins and somebody else in the free agency, and just go with that. This type of league right now, you need a guy that can get the ball down the field. You need a guy that can make plays with his legs in the pocket and be that type of pocket passer. And I feel like Daniel Jones is not that guy for the situation. So if they do land a top 5 pick and Caleb Williams is there, they got to go get him.
Let's go ahead and move off from the New York Giants, and let's talk about another team that's been extremely disappointing, a team that we had high hopes coming into the season for, and that's the Cincinnati Bengals. The team that started off again 0-2 this season was able to get a win on Monday night, even with Joe Burrow on one leg. But unfortunately, the following week, last week, they got smoked by the Tennessee Titans, I believe, 27-3. Joe Burrow didn't look particularly great. And now, they find themselves in a little bit of a hole, 1-3, going into Arizona this week. The Bengals offense just hasn't looked like themselves, like last year, the year before. Obviously, that's due to Joe Burrow's calf injury, his inability to, make plays with his legs, make plays outside of the pocket, and also hand in hand, Zach Taylor's play calling. But my question to you guys is, should the Bengals consider shutting down Joe Burrow, or at least benching him for a couple of weeks until he gets healthy again?
I think it's kind of too late for that now, because if you were going to bench Joe Burrow, you would have benched him to start off the season. I think now, like I've said this about the Bengals, is that they kind of understand this is like an extension year for a lot of guys. You're not going to have a window where you have a lot of talent at one point, and for this roster, I think that they're going to be losing guys. I don't expect T. Higgins to be part of this roster, after this season. Something tells me I feel like this team's going to move on from him. And so I think the Bengals kind of understood that this is their attempt at a Super Bowl year. And if they were going to sit Joe Burrow, they would have sat him to start off the season. And as it stands right now, I think that they're going to continue to just ride out and see, what he's able to do currently as it stands. But, he hasn't been able to play well at all. 80% of the time, 85% of the time, they have him in shotgun to be able to protect him. And even then, one of Joe Burrow's best abilities is his ability to escape pressure. He's able to understand, have pocket awareness, and move around. But he's not able to move around. He's not able to step into his throws. He's not able to evade pressure. Yeah, and hand in hand, like you mentioned, Zach Taylor's play calling. I don't think he's dialing up anything quick. It's kind of just sending Jamar Chase on long routes, sending T Higgins on long routes. No one's short as a release valve. And Titans were basically blitzing like all the time. I mean, Titans usually rush four guys, but even then, now they understood what they basically smelled blood in the water. They saw Joe Burrow with his calf injury, and they were just pressuring him. And so I don't think the Bengals are going to sit Joe Burrow. I wouldn't do it just because these guys. Like if I had the choice, I would have started him. I would have benched him to start the season. Let him get healthy. And honestly, I feel like they were downplaying this injury a lot more than it was, because it's like it's night and day. If you look at Joe Burrow last year and Joe Burrow this year, it's not the same quarterback whatsoever. And I think they're downplaying this a lot more than they should have. And so, you know, I feel like at this point they're just forced to keep playing him and just see how things go. And so I'm kind of on board with that. I know it doesn't bode well for his long term, success, but at the same time, you put yourself in this hole when you just bench him to start the season. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, coming into the season, he gets hurt, he's out, and then he comes back. And they didn't say really much if he's 100% healthy coming back from this injury, if he's 90%, if he's 80%. They just said, oh, he's back, he's going to play. We've seen what he looked like the first 2 weeks, and we can tell that injury's affected him so much. I mean, he really can't move in the pocket. He really, it's tough for him to get out, escape, and make moves with his legs and make plays with his legs. I mean, he's just sitting in the pocket like a sitting duck with the horrible O-line that he has. And, we always talk about their O-line. They do come, sometimes they do fix up. They come to play. But right now, it's nasty. He's getting blitzed from all different directions. They're sending safeties. They're sending cornerbacks at him. And he really can't do much. He can't escape from the pocket with his injury. And I feel like they should have kept him out the first 3 to 4 weeks, let him get healthy, have that 6 to 7 week break from the beginning of his injury, let him heal up and come back. But at the same time, the offense, even if he's healthy, Zach Taylor got to switch up the plays. I mean, we're looking at the same type of play calls and them throwing the ball 40 times, and one play is called 16 times, and they're doing the same play call. Sending Jamar Chase on the streak and T Higgins on the in route, and that's it. Mixing blocking. I don't see a tight end on the field sometimes, and it's nasty. You're relying on your 2 big time receivers. You gotta have other options that can open up the game. You gotta open up the game for your star receivers, and Zach Taylor hasn't been able to do that. Another thing is their defense has fallen off since last year and the year before. I feel like their defense has been giving up a lot of points. They've been getting cooked. It don't matter what team they're facing. They can face Tannehill. They can face Howell. They can face the backup quarterback for the Browns. They're still getting abused. And I feel like it's a fall off. They're missing a couple key players from last year that left in free agency, and it's taking an effect on them. Having to beat up O-line, injured quarterback, and a horrible offensive scheme coach that's not running great plays, and then your defense is not helping that much. I feel like it's time to wrap it up for the Bengals season. I don't see the adjustment happening right now. Burrow's still hurt, and they got a tough schedule coming up. So, yeah.
I honestly believe the Cincinnati Bengals are playing a very, very dangerous game when it comes to Joe Burrow and this calf injury, because calf injuries are pretty tricky. When I think of a calf injury, I think of guys like Kevin Durant. I think of guys like Aaron Rodgers, 2 guys that dealt with calf injuries and led to torn Achilles. Kevin Durant was rushed back a little bit. Aaron Rodgers was dealing with a calf injury throughout training camp. Week 1, a couple plays in, torn Achilles. And so it's a very, very dangerous game. And the reason why calf injuries are so tricky is because, you just never know how you're feeling from a day-to-day basis. One day you might be feeling well. The next day you might not. And so it's like, at this point for the Cincinnati Bengals, they got to start thinking about the future. And I understand that they have the roster to compete for a Super Bowl. They have all the talent on offense. Their defense can be pretty decent for them, but their offense is what they heavily rely on to take them far, to take them places, to lead them to a Super Bowl. And if Joe Burrow isn't half of himself out there on the field, the Cincinnati Bengals stand no chance. And if this is the version we're going to get from Joe Burrow from week to week, leading all the way up into the playoffs, if they end up making it, they're not going to end up winning anything. They're not going to win nothing with Joe Burrow playing this way. And so I think the Cincinnati Bengals have to be smart about this. They have to play this safe. They have to make a decision, and it's going to be a pretty harsh decision. They have to tell Joe Burrow that, hey, you're not 100%, and it's going to hurt us for this year. But at the end of the day, we're thinking about the long term. We're thinking about the future. We just gave you a contract right now. Joe Burrow just got that contract right now to start off the season. We don't want anything, hurting our future because we put all of our future into you. And so, like Big H mentioned, these guys said that Joe Burrow got hurt. He ended up saying he was back. They put a helmet on him, a week before the season started. But in between, during that time, we got no word, no news about how the rehab process was going, how his calf was feeling. It was just one day Joe Burrow got hurt. A couple of weeks goes by in training camp and preseason and all of that stuff. And next thing you know, he's back in practice and he's ready to go for week 1. And we saw how he looked in every game so far this season. Hasn't looked great whatsoever. And so it's a very, very dangerous game right now, what the Bengals are doing and what the Bengals are playing. It's Joe Burrow is their future. It's not easy to find a franchise quarterback like that. They had to sacrifice a lot. They had to lose a lot of games to get a guy like Joe Burrow. And so if you're not able to protect your guy with the O-line that you built, and if you're not able to make executive decisions on his future and his health, it's not going to lead you anywhere, man. And it isn't, even though, Joe Burrow is definitely going to play this upcoming week against the Cardinals, I'm not too sure if they're going to look any better than they did last week. I'm not too sure what changes. Like the play calling may change, but at the end of the day, every defense in the league is going to do the exact same thing the Titans did. They're going to send a blitz at Joe Burrow, and they're going to force him to do something with the limited amount of time he has behind that offensive line. And Joe Burrow last year was one of the best quarterbacks against the blitz, and now he looks like one of the worst quarterbacks against the blitz because he just can't use his legs. He can't be mobile. He can't get out of the pocket and make plays. He can't utilize his legs to go extend drives and go for runs. And so he's really limited right now. And, and of course, Zach Taylor is not helping his case whatsoever either. And we've always had our issues with Zach Taylor going back to the year they went to the Super Bowl. Some things just never change. And that's just one thing that's never going to change for the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow's greenness will always, kind of keep Zach Taylor's play calling under wraps. All of Zach Taylor's issues will be swept under the rug because of how great of a quarterback Joe Burrow is. And if Joe Burrow can't be great, and then Zach Taylor is the only guy that's going to get exposed in this whole situation. So, it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of take this whole situation from week to week when it comes to a guy like Joe Burrow, because each and every week is going to be extremely tough when your quarterback's not at 100%, the leader of the team. And at some point, if they end up not winning a lot of games, they might just have to shut him down for the rest of the season and start thinking about the future, start thinking about next year. And next year comes with a whole lot of questions. Like Abdi mentioned as well, T. Higgins might not be able to come back due to the fact that there's just not enough money to go around. Jamar Chase will be up for an extension. I'm sure they're probably going to look to give him an extension. It's, unlike what we did with Justin Jefferson, I think the Cincinnati Bengals are pretty much going to try to lock him up in this upcoming offseason. So, it's going to be interesting to see where the Bengals go from here. But aside from that, let's go ahead and move off to biggest surprises and biggest disappointments coming out of week 4 of the NFL season.
All right, for surprises, I'm going to go with Zach Wilson. I was a bit surprised about his performance. I think that one, early on to start that game, he looked a bit, as always, nervy, under pressure. And then, as the game, especially in that third quarter, he kind of settled in. He was making the right reads. He was hitting guys. Him and Garrett Wilson seemed to be, that connection seemed to be flourishing as the game went on. And I was a bit surprised about his performance. And, it felt like that was the type of game, especially that drive where he scored, where he scored where he threw a touchdown. I felt like that was like, one of his drives of Zach Wilson's not the biggest. Really need that. This team, it seems like they've had their criticisms with him. The locker room tensions about him. There's been a lot of problems, about Zach Wilson. But that, to me, that was the biggest surprise. I feel like this team is going to be the biggest disappointment every single week so far. It's the Cincinnati Bengals again and again. I think for me that to see what's been going on with Joe Burrow on this offense has just been downright terrible. A team that we were expecting to be a Super Bowl contender, and the team that we're expecting to go far. It hasn't been it has been been what we were expecting. Another team that I want to put up there is my team. I was disappointed with the performance. It's one thing to lose, but to lose in that type of fashion, it just felt like we're absolutely dominated, and the score may suggest that it was a little bit closer than it is. It didn't feel that way. until that second, the third quarter. Jordan Love was starting to find his rhythm, but I was disappointed. The offensive line played terrible. Jordan Love didn't particularly play great at all. He was consistently under pressure, and some throws that he needed to make, he didn't make. The defense, again, the run defense. I feel like I've talked about this run defense for 2 years now. It's been the same thing over and over again. And Joe Barry, and Matt LaFleur need to really look at themselves, because something has to change schematically. Something has to change about this team. It just feels like we just get overrun. So, biggest disappointment was definitely the Packers for me.
I mean, I really don't got no surprises coming out of this week. I did feel like the Jets and Chiefs game was gonna be close going into that night. I feel like the Chiefs, offensively and defensively, they've been struggling this year. I mean, they've been winning games, but at the same time, hasn't been like, wow, they're blowing out teams or they're putting up big numbers. I mean, yes, they did blow out the Bears. Other than that, everything else been close. So I feel like the Jets, they had to bounce back. Zach Wilson had a phenomenal week, but it wasn't a surprise to me. I felt like it was him just getting out of the shitters that he had and just getting confident in himself, and him having the whole team back him throughout the whole week and just supporting him. I feel like that gave him a little confidence boost. And I feel like it's an up for them for the rest of the season to have that, have him confident. But disappointment, Miami Dolphins. Scoring 72 points in a game, and then division rivals coming up, and I expected fireworks from them, but all I see was Josh Allen and Diggs on the field offensively. It was them, and them. That's all. I feel like the Dolphins, I don't know what happened. Offensively, it was pretty quiet for them. I feel like Tua really couldn't get the ball off, but man, this was the time for you to make your noise and make your stomping and be like, we're here in the AFC. And this is what I said in the beginning of the season before, in our predictions. I was like, once they get tested, are they gonna, show up? I mean, they got tested and we seen what happened. At 48-20, the offense was stuck. Defense was just getting cooked. Diggs had his turn. Gabe Davis was having his turn. James Cook was having his turn. Josh Allen was eating. And that's what this was probably going to happen in the playoffs as well. I feel like, the Dolphins, once you take out their one-trick pony offense and try to cancel out Waddle and Tyreek Hill down the middle and, keep them above water, they got nothing else. Ain't nothing else to show for. So, biggest disappointment was, me from the Dolphins. I thought they're going to come out, drop 35, 40, win the game. And I was like, Tua is making his noise, but ain't happening.
I'm going to make sure we keep this episode in the archives. So when they end up beating him again at the end of the season, when they play him,
last week, beating them again?
When they beat them, not again, but when they beat them the second time around, when they beat them in their second matchup at the end of the season, we can revisit a conversation like this. Divisional games are tough.
Brother, they got kicked in the chest. They got kicked in the chest. It's nice to score 70 against the Broncos, who the Washington Commanders scored 35 against, and Justin Fields scored 30 against. Like everybody's been bullying the Broncos, but when
I dropped 24 on the Broncos last week.
When the big dog comes in, what happens now? What happens now? The big dog came in, your divisional rival, and they kicked you in the chest. They thoroughly dominated you. I mean, Stephon Diggs had his way with that team. Come on, man. Josh Allen had a flawless game.
Yeah, 100%. Those guys they got it rolling right now. I think the Miami Dolphins defense kind of let them down. They didn't really give the offense much of a chance.
I mean, they took Tyreek Hill out the game.
They took Tyreek Hill out the game. The Miami Dolphins have still yet to incorporate Jalen Waddle into this offense, and I'm sure this might be the week where Waddle is due for a big week. But at the end of the day, the next time they see these guys, Jalen Ramsey will be on the field, so it might be a different conversation.
Hey, Von Miller gonna be on the field too. Tell Tua be careful up to you. Von Miller back. You gonna say Jalen Ramsey? I'm gonna bring up Von Miller.
Hey, let me see how many times Tua got sacked on Sunday. Oh man, it's 4 times. Yeah, you gotta. Their O-line has to do a better job at protecting them. But overall, I agree though. The Miami Dolphins were disappointing. Offensively, it wasn't the fireworks we were expecting, especially coming off an emotionally high win where they put up the second highest points in NFL history. But I wouldn't go as far as to say those guys are my biggest disappointment. But I want to start off with my biggest surprise so far, and I want to talk about these Tampa Bay Buccaneers, man. I think Baker Mayfield's done a hell of a job. Although his matchups have been fairly easy, he hasn't really gotten tested. I feel like this past week against this New Orleans Saints team was a pretty big test for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, especially coming off a loss. And so for Baker Mayfield to play the way he did, I believe he had 3 touchdowns and an interception, 246 yards, 25 for 32, completing his passes. Without Mike Evans for majority of the game, I think Mike Evans was dealing with the hamstring injury. And I think Baker's done a pretty good job for himself on this team. Going into a hostile environment in New Orleans, a divisional game, like I said, to come out, with the W, with their wide receiver one getting injured. I think we gotta give him some credit. We gotta give him some flowers for this performance, man. But I'm just very curious to see how long he can keep up this play. Because obviously we saw him go up against an elite team in the Philadelphia Eagles, and he looked like the Baker Mayfield of old. But if he's able to just continue playing like this against teams that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers can beat, they can compete with, we might be having a different conversation about Baker Mayfield. But for me, obviously, I've already highlighted it. The biggest disappointment was the Green Bay Packers. A game that could potentially decide the division. Between these two teams, I expected a lot more from this team, and I'm not too sure why Aaron Jones was activated if he was just going to be limited in his role. And Christian Watson had an appearance. He was on a snap count as well. But this game was a statement game for the Green Bay Packers. It was a statement game for the Detroit Lions as well. The Detroit Lions are coming in with the mentality of, we beat you guys last year when you had Aaron Rodgers. We stopped you guys. We slammed the door in your face for making the playoffs, and we're still better than you guys. Nothing has changed. We're still going to be the team to be in the NFC North, and that's exactly what they did. I mean, David Montgomery, coming back from an injury, had himself a career day. I believe he had 4 touchdowns in that game. The Green Bay Packers had absolutely no answer for him, and so I think the Green Bay Packers they'll get better once they get Aaron Jones and Christian Watson off those snap counts. But their defense, although I don't think Jair played that in that game as well, but it wasn't even like Jared Goff carving him up. It was just a run defense that was very, very disappointing. They weren't able to stop David Montgomery, and pretty much the rest is history. But week 4 of the NFL season, as the weeks go on, the quality of football is getting better and better. And of course, as football lovers and football, as we appreciate the game of football, of course, we can always love a good offensive shootout, a good offensive outing. But aside from all that, let's go ahead and move on to our first overreaction and not an overreaction segment of the year. Probably something we're going to do every 3, 4, 5 weeks, just to kind of get a feel for everything. And statement number 1 that I'll start with is the Buffalo Bills are still the team to beat in the AFC East.
Not an overreaction at all. They're the big dogs in this, man. You just seen what they did to the Dolphins. This is not an overreaction whatsoever in any capacity. They just they told Tua yo, you cool and all, but come on, man, it's Josh Allen. This is elite quarterback play. This is how you get it done. They're still the big dogs. I mean, the Jets, they're not a threat at all. Let's be honest. Same thing with the Patriots, with Mac Jones and that entire offense. And the Dolphins' offense is explosive and whatnot, but this Bills team, front to back, the entire roster, I mean, they got it, man. They're still the big dogs in this. I don't think it's an overreaction whatsoever.
Yeah, not an overreaction whatsoever. Josh Allen showed Tua what it's like to be a man in a division rival game, what it's like to show the world yo, we here, we still top dogs. That's what he did. Hey, Tua don't got a chance against that. Until he shows me that he can, drop a 35-point win over Josh Allen and dominate where it's it's not even fair, then yeah, I'll give him a chance, but not an overreaction. The Bills still the best team in the AFC East. They're gonna win the division, and they most likely gonna make another deep playoff one. So, yeah.
Can't wait to revisit this conversation. I'm going with overreaction. I think the Miami Dolphins, what they put on display this past week against the Buffalo Bills, it's not really them. That's not really how they play. That's not their identity. Of course, every division game is going to be tough, and Buffalo did what they were supposed to do. They were playing on their home turf, and Josh Allen had himself a phenomenal day. He's been red hot these last couple of weeks. He's been pretty much phenomenal. He's been the best quarterback these last couple of weeks as well. And so I think the Miami Dolphins, they'll end up beating them in their second matchup later on in this season. I mean, they're gonna split the series, and so I think what's really gonna decide, who's the best team in the AFC East is a matchup in the playoffs where the Buffalo Bills are healthy, where the Miami Dolphins are healthy. It doesn't matter where the game is played, because when it's the playoffs, every game counts, every game's important, every game is huge, and so that's going to be all money in, no money out. And I'll take the Miami Dolphins any day, with their offensive, with their explosive offense, than the Buffalo Bills, even though the Buffalo Bills have been looking red hot. But Next statement. CJ Stroud should have been the first pick in the 2023 NFL draft.
I think this is an overreaction. I think it's kind of unfair to Bryce Young, and I'm saying this as a CJ Stroud fan. I think when we look at this, look at Bryce Young's offensive situation. His number one wide receiver is what, a 33-year-old Adam Thielen. He has Jonathan Mingo, Laviska Shenault, Hayden Hurst. I mean, none of those guys are elite separators. They're not speed guys. They're all practically, outside of Adam Thielen, just big body wide receivers. They have Terrence Marshall. You add on top of the fact that they have no speed whatsoever in terms of their wide receivers. Bryce Young is dealing with a terrible offensive line play. Like, one of his guards is literally one of the worst in the entire NFL as it stands. Consistent pressure in his face. I mean, the Vikings, like, just for example, this game against the Vikings, it's a classic example. They were in Bryce's face a lot. Brian Flores, of course, we know he likes to blitz, but they were in Bryce Young's face a lot because of the pressure. At the same time as well, the offensive play calling hasn't been any sort of bit great. What makes Bryce Young special is his ability to improvise, his ability to kind of just get out the pocket, find guys down the field, make plays, big time plays to his wide receivers. And he hasn't been able to do that because, one, the play calling hasn't been there. Everything's underneath. It's short. Why are you throwing screens to Adam Thielen? What? Where is Adam Thielen going to go if you throw a screen to him? Terrence Marshall's terrible. I don't know why he keeps getting these screenplays. At least try them to Laviska Shenault. Like, these offensive play calling from Frank Reich has just been, like, abysmal. It's just unfair. Like, I feel like Bryce Young has been set up in this team. I had my question marks about Bryce Young's overall ceiling, but that doesn't change anything about his ability to process the field and be able to improvise. I think he can still do that at a high level, and he hasn't been even given a chance. So I think this is a complete overreaction.
One, they can't play him under pocket. Tell me one quarterback right now in the league that is in shotgun every single possession. Why? Because he cannot be under pocket. They cannot run any type of plays under pocket because he's a midget and he cannot run any type
That
of
is not true at all. That's not true at all.
Not,
and if anything, that's BS. That's a lie. That's a complete lie.
And 90%
it's not because of his. It's crazy. That's literally the biggest lie.
He's in shotgun formation.
Bryce Young, bro, what people don't understand is Bryce Young is not like Kyler Murray in the sense of Bryce Young can target the middle of the field. Bryce Young hits the middle of the field as well as any quarterback. I am telling you.
He can do that. I'm not taking that away from him. I'm just saying.
He can hit the middle of the field. Why can't we just admit it's not about Bryce Young's height? It's about the play calling. The play calling's terrible. Why are they calling screens?
I would say it's a 50-50 between his height and the capability of him playing under pocket to the play calling. Yes, it is.
It has nothing to do with his height. It has nothing to do with his height.
Yeah,
plus I don't get why I don't get why being under center is a problem.
We're comparing it to Kyler Murray, right? Another guy that can make plays out of the pocket, that can use his legs. Bryce Young can't do that either.
Kyler Murray can't target the middle of the field like Bryce Young.
He can't target the middle of the field, but he can make plays out of the pocket.
Kyler Murray doesn't keep his eyes.
Bryce Young is in the pocket every single possession. When it breaks down,
he's not given a chance. He's not given a chance.
But he got to make a chance himself. You can't just.
What do you mean give it a chance? He's not. Did you not see that play? Did you see the play where he was pissed, right? He was pissed. There was literally a play where they called on a third. I think it was a 3rd and 10. They called the screenplay. This guy was red hot. He's like, what the
horrible play call. But at the same time, there's a lot of other plays that come from him that are mistakes.
No.
There's a lot of other plays where he's standing in the pocket 5-6 seconds.
The only criticism,
not making a play out of his pocket, and then he crumbles down. He doesn't get touched. He just drops. The only
criticism that I have against Bryce Young that so far I don't think has been translated is his ability to kind of evade pressure. At Alabama, he did a great job of when guys were coming to sack him. He was able to kind of duck and avoid pressure. He hasn't been able to kind of just evade pressure like that gets in his face.
Trying to run the field with the best players in the game. They have everybody in Bama.
Nah, come on, man. That's if anything, that's CJ Stroud. What? CJ Stroud has the best.
Ohio State as well, of course. Yeah, he has
CJ Stroud had the best wide receivers known to men.
No, I'm just saying in general, those two teams are obviously
like Bryce
levels ahead of field. Well, but now both of them are coming down to teams where they're getting drafted that didn't do phenomenal.
But the thing is, the difference between the two is that the Texans identify what CJ Stroud's his ability is. They understand what he's good at and his strengths. What they're seeing is this: CJ Stroud is a strictly pocket passer. That's what he loves being in the pocket. Bryce Young's ability is to get out the pocket and keep his eyes up and make plays to guys. He's able to find guys in the middle of the field. He's able to look up and he's able to find. That's what makes Bryce Young special. He can process the field extremely well. CJ Stroud loves being in the pocket. So what are the Texans doing? They're like, okay, we have Nico Collins, we have Tank Dell, and they're passing offensive coordinator. They're like, let's just hit quick passes. And these guys, I didn't expect the Texans to be this pass heavy, and they've been crazy pass heavy. I think what CJ Stroud's third in the league in passing yards or something, or at least I know he's top 5 for sure. So exactly. So they understand. Okay, let's get this guy the ball and let's just make him pass quick passes. Let's build around his strength. Same thing with Anthony Richardson over there at the Colts. They're putting designed run plays. They're putting him in a position where he's able to use his legs, where he's able to make big time throws. Bryce Young hasn't had the opportunity at all. I think it's too early in the season to say that. Like, we haven't been able to put context into how much he's struggling.
For all rookies, regardless of it, I'm not going to judge him just off of 3-4 games coming.
Yeah, but saying CJ Stroud should have been the number one pick based off this.
But you know, even before the draft, I had CJ Stroud.
My thing is this. I'm saying is, if you're saying CJ Stroud should have been the number one before even the season started, that's one thing. That's fair enough. But if you're saying based off how the season is going off so far, yes, CJ Stroud, that's just confirmation bias. That's not fair. You're just saying, well, look at this. You're saying, look at how CJ Stroud's playing. This is why he should have been the number one pick. You should have been saying he's the number one pick before the season even went in. You get what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I don't think my problem isn't about what you're saying. It's about what people are saying. Oh, look at CJ Stroud, how he's playing. This is why he should have been the number one pick. Mm-hmm. I just think that's not fair.
The thing, though. People see the Texans, before coming into the season, they really didn't believe this team was going to come into the season like this and be that pass heavy and that, they're 10 toes on defense. They're playing phenomenal. And that's due to their coach. But offensively, CJ Stroud just stepped in like he's one of the star quarterbacks.
And this isn't take credit from him at all. CJ Stroud,
it don't take nothing from him, for me. But it's just like him being comfortable, just walking into the situation like he was prep ready already. He'd been in the league 3 to 4 years. It looks perfect for him, and I feel like he's just gonna build onto this, and it's perfect. For him coming into this. To this type of offense, to this type of pass offense, and him getting the trust that he needs from the coach, I just feel like he was much prepared for this. So for me, I always want to see CJ Stroud run. For me, I'm still saying that he's gonna go one, but I'm gonna give Bryce Young some time. But you can't forget about Anthony Richardson. That man a dog.
I'm not letting you get off easy like that, Big H. Dude, there's a question at hand that needs to be answered. Not an overreaction or overreaction. I need to know. I understand you said CJ Stroud was your guy, and he should have went number one regardless before the season started. Now, after 4 weeks of football, should he have gone number one in the 2023 NFL draft?
CJ Stroud?
Yeah, overreaction or not overreaction based on what you've seen through the first 4 weeks of the NFL season?
Not an overreaction. He should have won one.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you though. I do believe this is not an overreaction though, and it's no knock on Bryce Young. I believe the situation, the environment matters when it comes to rookie quarterbacks. You can't expect the rookie quarterback, although he's a top draft pick, top 5, top 2, number 1. You can't expect guys to just come in and uplift the franchise from day one. And of course, we're seeing struggles from Bryce Young in Carolina, where the design play calls just aren't what Bryce Young is used to, what he's comfortable with. And so there's a lot of growing pains right now coming out of Carolina. And what hurts them the most is the fact that they just don't own their number 1 overall pick. And the thing what is kind of stupid about the Carolina Panthers is the fact that they're in the market right now for a wide receiver 1. I'm hearing reports
probably burns them seeing DJ Moore, man.
Yeah, it's like they're in the market right now looking for a wide receiver 1. They're trying to get T. Higgins reportedly, but they already had a wide receiver 1 in DJ Moore. And unfortunately, they had to add him into the trade to go get a guy like Bryce Young. And so, I know they're kicking themselves in the foot right now and shooting themselves in the foot just based on the fact that DJ Moore is a true wide receiver 1 in this league. He just needed a better quarterback play. So, we'll never know how good of a quarterback Bryce Young, it could have been, these first 4 weeks if he had a wide receiver 1 with DJ Moore. But to get back to CJ Stroud, man, I think, he's been absolutely phenomenal. He's definitely the best rookie quarterback right now. I'm an Anthony Richardson guy, and I think Anthony Richardson is definitely a close second. But at the end of the day, man, this guy just looks so comfortable in the pocket, and there's not a throw that he doesn't like. There's not a throw that he can't make. And I feel like we can kind of compare both of the wide receiver cores. Carolina's wide receiver core is a little bit worse than the Houston Texans, but coming into this season. Nico Collins, Tank Dell, we weren't expecting those guys to kind of just pop off and do what they're doing right now. I think we have to give a lot of the credit to CJ Stroud and what he's doing with his receiving core, with his options, just understanding that these are the guys that he has to roll with each and every week. He's rolling in with these guys, and he's going to make it work. He said he wants Texas fans to rep Texas with pride, the same way they do when they're out there on the field. And so, it's been an absolute phenomenal start, for CJ Stroud start off the season. So I personally believe it's not an overreaction so far, but things could get better for Bryce Young. If things end up getting better for Bryce Young and they're on the equal level playing field, then we're probably going to have to revisit this conversation. But 4 weeks into the season so far, Bryce Young has had his struggles. Some of it is his fault and some of it is not his fault. And right now they just kind of have to find a nice little balance in between him and the head coach kind of having a better, understanding of one another. That's really all it is right now. They're just not on the same page, and it's been a huge problem. And so aside from all that, let's go ahead and move on to our next statement. Mike Tomlin should be on the coach's hot seat.
Overreaction. I think he has too much credit in the bank to be on the hot seat. I think, the biggest, I think people should be looking more at Matt Canada, their OC. I mean, I've always been critical about him, but this team, this offense should be performing way better. It seems like, I think having 300 yards of passing offense was basically impossible for this team. I think they've only had it once in the last 2 years or something like that.
It was 400 yards.
Yeah, or for 400 total yards of offense. For this, this team hasn't been able to produce much on offense. Their offensive line play hasn't been great. Najee Harris hasn't been exactly what they needed for him to be. Kenny Pickett, he got injured, but his play has been kind of up and down. I think Mike Tomlin won't be on the hot seat, but it seems like the Steelers kind of go through this exact same cycle every single year, and I don't know at what point they're going to start to break it. It's first 5 weeks they look terrible. The next 4 weeks after that, they start to look better. Then they end the season on a really strong stretch. They go 500, leaves fans happy, rinse and repeat the next year. They do it every single time, and I feel like that kind of just leaves the fans in a position where they're like, well, he is getting us to 500, but how much is our ceiling kind of capped with this team with him as a head coach? So, I think depending on how the season, this might be the season where his streak kind of breaks. I think then that's when people start to look at him to be on the hot seat.
I think this is an overreaction. I really truly believe the problem is Matt Canada. I feel like, he's really not opening up the offense the way they needed to. I feel like we talked about this issue many times. I know, in the Steelers franchise, it's always the next guy up. And he was the quarterback's coach when, Big Ben was playing. And Tomlin's all about loyalty. He's always been preached about that. And he promoted Matt Canada to offensive coordinator, quarterback's coach. I don't think that was a great move that he made, but it's time that he kind of, says, hey, it's time to go. You got to get fired. They got to get a different look at offense. They got some players on that offense that they can utilize. They got, Deontay Johnson. They got Pickens. They got Pat Freiermuth. And you got Najee. And, Kenny Pickett's an okay quarterback, but we really haven't seen them open up the offense these last 2 years. We've seen them scrape by, get W's. We've seen them get W's winning 13-10 or 16-13. It's very close games, but it's not high-scoring games for them, So for me, I don't think Tomlin should be fired, man. This guy, he has won in Pittsburgh before. We've seen him win, Super Bowls, and we've seen him win playoff games. I feel like, he got money in the bank for him to stay on that team, and it's time for him to let Matt Canada go, fix up the offense. You might have something working. They have a phenomenal defense, but when your offense is always off the field, your defense is going to get tired, and it's contagious. One side of the ball's not doing good, it's going to get affected on the other side, and it did show last week against the Texans. That defense got torched. And they got some big-time players on there, and I feel like it's just the side effect on how the offense is doing it, just moving along to the defense. So right now, you got to fix the problem sooner than later. And if this continues on, it's going to be bad on both sides of the ball. So he got to go get a new OC, and we'll see what happens with that offense. They got some young stars there.
I'm going to go with not an overreaction, but here's what I'm thinking. I understand Mike Tomlin and his track record as a Steelers head coach, not a season below 500. He's been a very, very successful coach during his tenure, with the Steelers franchise. But at the same time, each and every week, each and every year, it's been kind of like the same story. Mike Tomlin will always coach these guys into having an elite defense. Their defense has never been an issue in recent years. They'll always have an elite defense. Mike Tomlin does a great job at getting those guys right on that side of the ball. The offensive issues, you guys highlight Matt Canada, and of course, we understand. I understand that we're going to all sound like a broken record when we talk about him. But Mike Tomlin has an issue vouching for a guy like Matt Canada. Coming out of last week when they got absolutely demolished by the Houston Texans, once again, Mike Tomlin came into the presser and to the post-game presser and said, Matt, I still have faith in Matt Canada. Obviously we have some issues that need to be fixed, and that those issues will be fixed. But if everybody in the world knows that Matt Canada is the issue, then that only should open up Mike Tomlin's eyes a lot more. I don't understand what Mike Tomlin sees in Matt Canada to continue to keep him as the offensive coordinator of this team. These guys haven't won a playoff game since 2016. Matt Canada has been on this team for 4 years now. He started off as a quarterbacks coach, promoted to offensive coordinator, and they've had a bottom 5 offense for the last 5 years. And so, Mike Tomlin doesn't have offensive play calling duties. He's giving all of his trust. He's giving all those duties over to Matt Canada. And if Mike Tomlin is vouching for this guy consistently, saying that, I have 100% faith, I back Matt Canada, what is the front office going to do? The front office is not going to fire Matt Canada. I mean, they're not going to talk to Mike Tomlin either, just based on his track record and how he stands and where he stands in that franchise. And so I believe Mike Tomlin is playing a huge part in this, in this whole problem, because he could have solved this issue a long time ago. If Mike Tomlin comes out and says that, Matt Canada is the issue, or he doesn't even have to come out and say that. He can just go up to the front office and go up to management and say, Matt Canada isn't the offensive coordinator that we need. We need to go in a different direction. We need to hire a new guy. The Steelers would do that in a heartbeat. Matt Canada would not have access the next day to the facility. And so Mike Tomlin right now he's playing a very, very big part in vouching for this guy. And I'm not too sure how long, Mike Tomlin is going to have control of this team, because I saw a clip earlier today about Clint Boswell. I believe this is when they came off their win against the Cleveland Browns on Monday night. And Matt Canada is walking into the locker room, and he's hugging one of the team members one of the staff members on the team. And, they're celebrating, and Matt Canada walks off into the locker room. Clint Boswell is following him, right? He's like right behind him, but have a couple steps in between. He says, it wasn't because of you, we won, pretty much. And so, there's some sort of sense in the locker room right now where the players and every Steelers fan in the world, they're all understanding that Matt Canada is the true criminal in this whole operation. He's a true problem on this franchise. And at some point, whether it's going to cost Mike Tomlin his above 500 streak, or the Pittsburgh Steelers just kind of hit a bump in the road in the midseason where they're not able to do anything offensively. They're losing all of these games. At some point, Mike Tomlin is going to have to come down and make this executive decision, or else people are going to start, having a conversation like this where, Mike asking themselves whether or not they believe Mike Tomlin should be on the hot seat. A lot of people right now aren't. Of course, they're going to say, it's an overreaction to say he should be on it. But when you look at it from this perspective, where he's consistently vouching for a guy that's holding the team back, everyone's going to be like, well, you're also a part of the problem. So that's kind of where I stand with this whole situation. I understand that Mike Tomlin is an elite coach. He's a great coach. That's a guy that has a winning record. And I understand that he has a lot of money in the bank. But at the end of the day, if you're not able to, make harsh decisions, as the head coach of this team, then at some point, people are going to have to scrutinize you. They're going to have to criticize you along with Matt Canada. And I don't think Mike Tomlin deserves any of the blame coming from the Steelers fans and all of the football fans across the world. Everyone knows what Mike Tomlin is about, but it's just that if he continues to keep on vouching for a guy like Matt Canada, they're going to go absolutely nowhere. And there's issues right now. They've been in a complete disappointment this whole entire season. They haven't been able to do anything offensively. The games that they've won, their defense has played lights out. It hasn't been anything from their offense. And so, that's going to be an issue that we're going to continuously talk about each and every episode. Are the Steelers going to end up fixing it now? Is this Matt Canada's last week? But as these weeks go on, of course, we'll go ahead and talk about the Steelers a lot more. But of course, let's go ahead and move on to our last overreaction and not an overreaction. Zach Wilson can lead the New York Jets to the playoffs. And I believe Big H, you should start us off with this one.
Overreaction. I feel like, right now, at this point, even though he had a great game against the Chiefs and they still lost, they still got to fix up on a lot of stuff. I feel like they got to involve Brees Hall more in the run game. They got to pick that up. They got to find Garrett Wilson, man. That's your elite receiver right there. Zach Wilson and him got to connect. You got to get more targets, man. Having 4 targets a game, 3 catches, it's not going to push. You got to get your big players, involved, and the offense got to start pushing. But I just don't see that happening. I feel like they're going to be fighting in games. They're going to win some close games. They're going to lose some close games, but playoffs. So right now it's too tough for them. They're missing one of the all-time great quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers, and I don't think Zach Wilson will pick up that type of slouch that they need, or the type of offense that they need. But they'll be close though. I feel like they'll be like 2 spots out. Not 2 spots, but like a game or 2 games out. They'll be like right there. But I just don't see them, locking in the seat in the playoffs, especially with how the Bills are playing in the Dolphins, and then you got the Ravens and the Chiefs, and you got. Am I missing anybody else? You got the Chargers that are playing good. I mean,
Jaguars,
even Texans right there.
You got the Texans are right there, Colts right there. A lot of teams.
A lot of teams there. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, definitely an overreaction for me. I think, number one, of course, it was good to see Zach Wilson, play a lot better. I do think it was a little bit corny. I think it was Rodney Harrison trying to get a reaction out of Chris Jones.
That's some cornball shit right there. Even when Chris Jones shut that, he shut it down. But he's trash though. When y'all look at that film, he's still trash. I'm like, man, you a grown ass man trying to shit on a kid on live television, for no reason too. So that was some cornball shit.
Yeah, I just think it was extremely unnecessary, man. I think, especially coming off a game where he actually played pretty well for himself, And the thing is, everybody in the world understands that Zach Wilson hasn't been playing great for the last season, and to start off this season since he's taken over. And then finally the one breaking point he has where he's starting to play good football. He's playing against, Patrick Mahomes. They're kind of going toe to toe. If anything, people should have uplifted him coming out of that game. Credit to Chris Jones, for absolutely shutting it down, saying that Zach Wilson's a good quarterback. Even Patrick Mahomes was talking with Zach Wilson post game and said, just got to hang in there. You're solid. You're getting better each and every week. And, it looks like, Zach Wilson does have a lot of support, from guys in the NFL. But, for the media to continuously bash him, even though he's having a great performance, that apology doesn't mean anything, because your true colors were shown, and so, but definitely an overreaction for me. I think, even though Zach Wilson played great, I think at the end of the day, the only way I see up for the New York Jets team is just the fact that it's just the way that if Brees Hall has to step up, he has to be the guy that they have to kind of change their whole identity, their whole offense. And it's actually good news, Brees Hall, they're taking off the training wheels off him this upcoming week in a perfect matchup against the Denver Broncos. And so, they're gonna have the defense is always going to be great. I mean, I do think they did get a little bit robbed against the Kansas City Chiefs, but at the end of the day, I guess we'll just never know. But Abdi, are you still with us, or it says your screen is black?
The refs played a big part in that game, late game, man.
It's because of Taylor Swift, man. The funny thing is, on my overreaction and not overreaction list that I created earlier today, I put Taylor. I said Taylor Swift is ruining the game of football, man. But
man, it's
too
crazy,
much, bro. I just think, I understand, that the NFL is just trying to capitalize on all of this. They're, all the eyes, Taylor Swift, there's a whole fan base that follows her. So at the end of the day, that just means more money, more viewership and all that stuff. But, thank God, I don't think she'll be in Minnesota for this upcoming game. So hopefully the league doesn't rig it.
Who knows, man?
No, if she's in Minnesota, she don't got a life if she's in Minnesota.
She look like she want to be at these games, man.
Nah, if she's in Minnesota, she ain't got nothing. She ain't got no. She got a lot of time on her hands, man. But aside from all that, though, that wraps up our overreaction, not an overreaction, for week 4 of the NFL season. It's something that we'll continue to do every 4 to 5 weeks, I want to say. But now we'll go ahead and move on to our Week 5 pick and predictions. And Week 5 of the NFL season is among us. We're recording this episode on Thursday night, so of course we all just finished watching that Chicago Bears absolute massacre against the Washington Commanders. They were able to win that game 40-20, but unfortunately, none of us picked the Bears to win this game. So we had absolutely no faith in Justin Fields. We had absolutely no faith in DJ Moore to win this game. But we just go ahead and move on to Sunday's games. And the first game we got on the schedule is the Jacksonville Jaguars going up against the Buffalo Bills.
100%. I think I'm going to go with the Bills. I'm not going to lie. I think the Jags offense hasn't given me anything to really have hope about. Calvin really hasn't been good since that week 1. He's been suffering from drops. Trevor Lawrence, I think he's still been fine, but this offense hasn't been ho-hum like we expected to be. And the Bills are red hot, so I think picking against them, that ain't it, man.
Yeah, I'm going with Joshy Boy and, Mr. Diggs. They're going to build off what they did last week. I felt like the Jaguars offensively last 3 weeks, they've been very slow. And the Bills just been rolling, so I got the Bills.
Yeah, I'm going Bills in this one. Houston Texans on the road playing the Atlanta Falcons.
Bit of an interesting matchup, but I can't trust Desmond Ridder. Give me CJ Stroud and the Texans.
I got my Texans.
I'm going Texans in this one as well. Next, we have the 0-4 Panthers going on the road to play the Detroit Lions.
Detroit Lions, man. The Panthers, they stink right now.
Got the Lions.
Tennessee Titans going on the road to play the Indianapolis Colts. Jonathan Taylor may be back in this game.
Bit of an interesting matchup. I'm gonna go with the Titans in this one.
Anthony Richardson, JT, Michael Pittman. Offense is moving me low key. I think I got the Colts.
Yeah, I'm going Colts in this one. Now we have the New York Giants going on the road to play the Miami Dolphins. Consensus Dolphins.
Dolphins, man.
Yeah, it's not much to think about.
Two of the boys.
We'll go ahead and move on to the next game. The New Orleans Saints are going on the road to play the New England Patriots.
Give me the Saints in this one.
It's an interesting one in terms of points.
Yeah, give me the Saints.
I got to be edgy here, man. I'm down a lot in the rankings, so I'm going to go the New England Patriots. I think they bounce back. We have a divisional game now. We have the Baltimore Ravens going on the road to play the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Steelers usually give these guys hell. That's the crazy part. I swear the Steelers just be bothering the Ravens. I'm going to still go with the Ravens in this one, though. I like how their offense has been looking.
I'm going with the Ravens. Can't trust Matt Canada's offense anymore.
I'm going Ravens in this one. Now we move on to we still have one more. Actually, no, we don't have one more 10 o'clock game. We move on to the 1 o'clock slate. We have not my Kansas City Chiefs. We have the Kansas City Chiefs going up against my Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota.
Give me the Chiefs.
Chiefs.
Yeah, we had fun last week, but I'm going Kansas City as well. The next 1 o'clock game, we have the Philadelphia Eagles going on the road to play the Los Angeles Rams. Cooper Kupp may make his debut as well in this one.
I haven't liked how the Eagles' passing offense has been, but I must play it safe and just go with the Eagles in this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Eagles.
I'm going Eagles as well. This one is a little interesting. We have the Cincinnati Bengals going on the road to play the Arizona Cardinals.
God, everything in my body is telling me to pick the Cardinals, man. Everything is pointing to me to pick the Cardinals, but I'm going to just go with the Bengals just for the hell of it, just because of the talent they have.
Nah, fuck the Cardinals. I'm going with the Bengals.
I got to be a little bit edgy here, man. I feel like I'm forced to, but I'm going to go ahead and pick the Arizona Cardinals to win this game.
That's fair.
A game that we'll go ahead and move on to the next game, a game that we thought was going to be extremely interesting between Aaron Rodgers going up against Sean Payne. But unfortunately, it's the New York Jets going up against the Denver Broncos. Zach Wilson versus Russell Wilson.
This one is a bit of a. Everybody's looked good against that Broncos defense. I'm gonna go with the Jets, man. I'm gonna go with the Jets.
I'm rocking with the Jets for this one. I think they, last year when they played the Broncos, Brees Hall had his game, but then he tore his ACL in that game. But he had that big 72-yard running in that game. I feel like with him getting the shackles off this week, we're gonna see like 160, 2 tugs. Mark it. I got the Jets.
Yeah, I'm going New York Jets here. Now we move on to our Sunday night game. We have the Dallas Cowboys going up against the San Francisco 49ers. This one should be a good one.
Give me the 49ers.
Niners. They own the Cowboys.
Yeah, Niners. This one was a no-brainer, though. And then, of course, we close out with our Monday Night Football matchup between these Green Bay Packers going on the road to play the Las Vegas Raiders.
Give me the Green Bay Packers.
It's an interesting game. I feel like it's going to be a close game. Devontae, homecoming. I feel like it's going to be a nice game, but I think I'm going to go with the Raiders on this one.
Yeah, I'm going Raiders in this one. Jimmy G clears the concussion protocol. I think there's a better chance with him than fucking Aiden McConnell. But that wraps up our Week 5 pick and predictions.
Shout out Aiden McConnell for last week, man. That's my guy right there.
That freaking scrub lost me a fantasy matchup against you. But it's all good. We move, right? Aside from all that wraps up our episode for today. Any final words before we move on to Week 5 of the NFL season?
Man, the season's going by quick. Already Week 5 is kind of crazy.
Seattle, this early in the season got their bye week already. I feel like for us in this situation, it's the perfect time because we got a whole lot of injuries right now. So, after this, man, I got a long, long season left ahead of us. There's no bye week, just straight football. So 3-1. I'm pretty happy right now.
Very, very, very excited for some football this week. I'm excited to see that matchup between my Kansas City Chiefs, man. My Minnesota Vikings.
Man, if you want to support them, man. The Vikings.
I'm not sure. I can't do my boys like that right now. But should be an interesting matchup between those two teams. And of course, aside from the football season being on right now, the NBA preseason just kicked off, and so that means the NBA season is coming up very soon. And of course, we're gonna have to be talking about NBA really, really soon. Potentially even next week. But of course, we'll go ahead and close up the episode here. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. We really appreciate your love and support. We'd really appreciate it if you like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at New Media Podcast. And for those of you that are watching us on YouTube, all of our social media handles will be at the end of this video. And if you're listening to us on Apple and Spotify, if you go to our Instagram page at New Media Podcast, you'll be able to navigate yourself to all of our social media handles there. So once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And of course, we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Record a new hit, then we making us a film. Wouldn't sign a deal if I got a couple mil. Been in the lab, now they throwing out deals. Me and now Lakes, now that's overkill.